Hello out there, Gaming Verse. This is the K3 Shadow here doing my very first YouTube video. I'm here to talk about video games, game reviews, gaming news, pretty much anything video game related. I decided to start videos up on YouTube mostly because you know what, everyone else was doing doing these kind of things, and I figured, hey, why not me too? I really don't expect this channel to be popular in any way, or at least not as popular as some of the big names, and I figured, you know what, why not? I'll do whatever the hell I want. So my very first video, I decided to do a review on the game Catherine. Now, Catherine is a video game that I both like and dislike. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not absolutely hate the game. The game is compelling. It will hook you in if you let it. It has some interesting elements, and I like the fact that they could take something as simple as cheating on your girlfriend and turn it into and bring out supernatural elements. But you know that is anime, and that's why we love it. But about the game itself, Catherine, if for the two of you who didn't already know, stars a man named Vincent in his early 30s. He has been living pretty much the good life. He is in a steady relationship, although they're not even living together. He's off. He has his own apartment. He goes out, drinks with his friends. From what I've seen, practically every night. He is a guy who does have things good, but I find it odd that the game starts out with as like a downward slope when his girlfriend Catherine, that's Catherine with a K, decides to who is dropping some serious hints about getting married. And with that, he becomes all depressed and over this, and during his depression and not sharing, he wants things to change. He meets pretty much the girl of his dreams, Catherine. That's Catherine with the C, the blonde Catherine, the hot Catherine. Although the one with the K is pretty hot, but I still think the blonde one is hotter. And from one night stand, everything just spirals out of control. Now, the problem I have is that when it comes to the story, it's not so much my problem with the story. It's just that there are times where I just want to grab Vincent and just say, "Be a man." The thing is that all of this could have been avoided if he would just man up and say, "Hey, I have a girlfriend." He had plenty of times. But I noticed this is a interesting element with romantic comedies when it comes to anime, where the main protagonist, suddenly develops, all these girls, all these girls suddenly swoon over him. And he's like in such duress. But the thing is, if he would just sit down and talk to him, all his problems would basically be over. Vincent, he is basically a tool, and like he just goes whichever the wind takes him. I mean, he doesn't know how to get any control. It's like, and as the game progresses, you really understand why Vincent wanted everything to be staying the same, because I mean he really can't handle this kind of thing normally. And it took something crazy. If you play the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. For him to finally, man up and make a decision. Vincent gets advice from his three friends. Well, I guess technically four if you count the blonde. No, sorry, not the blonde. The red-haired waitress. First, you have Jonathan, the typical anime bish character in these types of games, who looks cool. He has the cigarette, he has the cool looking hair, but he practically screams. He practically screams that he has something negative about it. He is just too cool to not be touched by the negative effects of life. But no real problems with him. He's an interesting character. He pretty much says everything up front. And of all of his friends, Jonathan is actually seen to be the most level-headed one, and who Vincent should be listening to the most. Then you have Tobias, the pretty much like the 23-year-old kid. He sounds like a kid. He looks like a kid. I mean, if I didn't know that for the fact that he was actually drinking a beer, I would think he was 16 years old or something. And interestingly enough, while this epidemic is going around with pretty much every other male, he's the one who's not really suffering over it. Or if he is, I missed it. Everything else was kind of like, I had my attentions. And those of you who played the puzzle sections of the games know exactly what I'm talking about. Then we we come to Orlando, he is the second most annoying character in the game for me personally. It is not necessarily his personality. It's I know this is a petty gripe, but I can't stand that plaid fedora hat. Oh my gosh. I mean, you will see him come out with some really nice clothes, and then bam, you will see that ugly looking hat that just clashes with everything. Now, maybe some of you out there like it. I can't stand it. I really can't. And I want to punch him in the face whenever I see it. Other than that, I think he's a really cool guy. He's really fun loving, and pretty easygoing. Although, you can really kind of tell that he's like more about himself than anyone else. I mean, it's not so subtle, but it was there. Even when the game pretty much like finally blurted it out. Other than the hat, he is cool as well. Then you get to Erica. Pretty much the second voice of reason. If it wasn't for her overly flirty personality, I would say she would have been like the greatest voice of reason. But she's right up there with Jonathan. She seemed to have a grasp of what's going on more than the game lets you on. Of course, she was really surprised by the real twist in the ending with Boss. But you know what? That's actually giving away a point, so I'm not gonna go there. But Boss, come on. He is the typical example of someone who has something to hide. And don't tell me he isn't. Seriously. I'm sorry. Spoiler alert. So if you don't like, this part of the video, I guess, skip a little. But you know what? Boss might as well have been wearing a sign saying, I have everything to do with all the freakiness that is going on with your life right now. But that's all I'll say about Boss. But with the other side of the game, there's also the gameplay aspect, and the real gameplay aspect is the story. I mean, not the story, the puzzles. And it's the puzzles that I have the biggest gripe with. Now, first of all, don't get me wrong, the puzzles are fun and exciting, and I got hooked on them. You can easily get hooked on the puzzles. But the problem with the puzzles is that this game could have reaped huge success, but they decided to do big budget title instead. The puzzles themselves look like they look like Q*bert on steroid. Not necessarily that's a bad thing, but it's unnecessary. The puzzle aspect are, let's face it, the real meat of the game, and honestly, the puzzles did not need to be there at all. See, the thing is, all they really needed to do with Catherine is just take out the story mode, put in the puzzle sequence, and pretty much just go about and put it into an arcade game. Maybe like lower the sprites, make them an arcade game, PSN game / iPhone game, and this game would have sold like hotcakes. The puzzles are the real meat of the game, and after you know the story, let's face it, you probably don't want to play it more than twice just to see the positive and negative karma effects of the endings. But once you're done with that, the puzzles are the real reason to keep you going. And you don't need to spend $60 on that. They didn't need to make this into a big budget production. Seriously, the puzzles themselves would have been great. Just take Vincent, take him out of his, put him in regular clothes and his tidy whities. Had like his girlfriend at the top of every stage, and just make these puzzles as a way to get to her, and just regenerate the puzzles, make them random every single time, so you're not playing the same ones twice, and boom, instant hit. But instead they made it into a $60 game. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think it was just like it was truly unnecessary. And when you look at the game itself, like you look at the story aspect and you look at the puzzle aspects, it's like these two aspects met in a demolition derby and had a head-on collision, and Catherine was the result of it. I mean, if I don't usually have that many games where I think the gameplay and story are just on two different wavelengths, but Catherine is definitely one of them. doing the same similar block puzzles over and over again was unnecessary if if they were relevant to the story. What they could have done was make different puzzles for each stage, or different activities for each stage. One could be a block puzzle game, another one could be like a weird card game, another part could be like a fighting game. They could have done it like No More Heroes. It just did different activities, when he was having the nightmares. I mean, they're freaking nightmares. Do you know what you could do with them? Ugh, but I digress. Catherine is a game that you will like if you allow it to sink its hooks into it. I know I keep saying that. That really is the case. I mean, like I said, you will have fun with the game. Do not get me wrong, but but the puzzles are the reason to keep going. And I hope the developers of Catherine realize this mistake, and I hope they will. In the next time they do a game like this, try to understand that sometimes you don't need a huge story for a fun aspect of the game. The story should have been its own thing, and like maybe a variety of side things. If when the nightmares came in, the puzzle part of the game could have been its own little thing, and probably could have made the company a lot of money. But instead, we get Catherine, and as I said, it's not a bad game, but I think it's over budget when it didn't need to be. Well, that is my review on Catherine. This is the K3 Shadow signing off. See you next video.